All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Monday, December 2nd. We got 4 games to jump into for today's NBA slate. Like we always do, I'm going to dive into each and every one of these games. I'll give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about any other plays, like player props that we like within the game as well. But keep an eye down on the pinned comment. My final plays will be taken to them from there absolutely free. So I'm actually rolling with myself if you are interested in that. We don't have a recap for the last couple days. Because I did what's very, very rare. We did take, one day we were traveling, and then we did take one day off. So, yeah, we're feeling fresh coming back into this. This is our first NBA video of December. So, you know what? Very, very excited. It's the holiday season out here. Very, very excited to jump into back into the content here. So, like I said, 4 games on the slate. We're going to dive into that, guys. Before we do, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and go ahead and drop your ride of the days down in the comments. If you don't know what the ride of the day is, just use that hashtag ride of the day right here on the screen. Give me your favorite play. I pick one play and jump on board with it. I tweet it out. I put it on the Guy Boston site, and you get a shout out in the next video, win or loss. If you lose, we do got to talk about it. We drop the soundboard womp womp on you. But if you win, we ride with you again, and you roll until you lose, and you can go on a nice little streak continuing to get shout out. So drop that hashtag ride of the day in the comments. But like I said, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's start rolling here. We're starting it off with my Boston Celtics taking on the Miami Heat here in this one. I want to start with the total because I do think that's the simpler side. I don't necessarily think this is going to be a very high-scoring game. Obviously, the Celtics are a offensive powerhouse. They're coming off of a loss yesterday to Cleveland, so I will mention that. But it's going to be tough for Miami to stop Boston, and I understand that. But the pace that these two teams have been playing at in the last 10 games is very slow. Miami, the 4th slowest. Celtics, the 7th slowest. And if you just look traditionally and historically when these two teams play, very, very low scoring. If we go from most recent game all the way down here, 118 to 84, 102 to 88, 104 to 84, 111 to 101. Now, obviously, we're talking some playoff games, so those have a little bit more intensity, but even still, 114 to 94, 106 to 110. Then you have one outlier of 143 to 110, and then it's right back to 103, 84, 104, 103. So these two teams play each other tight. They play a lot of defense. It ends up being a little bit gritty. Like I mentioned, there is the caveat that these are a lot of playoff games that we're referencing, but still, I do like an under here in this spot. And I started with the under because I like the Celtics to win this game by double digits, but it's very tough to think that when it's going to be a low-scoring game. I'm still going to put both the total and the spread in a vacuum and not try and correlate them in a sense. I like the Celtics here. They're a lot better than the Heat, and coming off of a loss, I feel like they should be fired up. This Miami team just lost a game to Toronto, was it yesterday as well, right? So the back-to-back, you can't really sit here and say that it's going to impact the Celtics more than is the Heat or anything like that, especially when the Celtics in no-rest situations have covered in 2/3 of all their back-to-back games so far this season. The Heat just 50-50. So give me the Celtics here in this spot. There are some lines. We're waiting on some injuries, which I probably should have started with this. Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jimmy Butler also listed as questionable, and then Josh Richardson out. Obviously there. So yeah, there are some injuries to monitor. I think I like the Celtics even if those guys are out. If Jimmy Butler doesn't play, I really do like Bam Adebayo. Even if Jimmy Butler does play, I like Bam Adebayo, because what have we been doing against Celtics when we bet against them this year, right? We take guys that like to score in the paint and whatnot, because the Celtics aren't like Fort Knox down there. They cover the perimeter phenomenally on the season. Top 5 team in terms of covering the perimeter, but overall 3rd worst in terms of points in the paint. Now, the Heat don't like to shoot in the paint all that much, but they're not just like a 3 run and gun team. They don't just shoot a bunch of threes either. So if they start to find a little bit of a hole in the paint, I think that they will attack that. So yeah, give me Bam Adebayo, hoping Jimmy Butler at least isn't 100%. Obviously he's been good, but he's had his injury worries this season. So I think Bam Adebayo could be a look. Jimmy Butler, his points are down at 17.5, but he's been a little too inconsistent for me. And if he's hobbled a little bit, not exactly the best spot. So I'd target someone that likes to score in the paint like Bam against the Celtics team. Next up, Atlanta taking on the Pelicans. The Pelicans still battling to get healthy. We've talked about it all year long that, even if they are healthy, do they fix their woes and whatnot? I'm not exactly sure. I'm not a big believer in Ingram and Zion coexisting, but today they're going to coexist on the bench or not even there because they are both out. You do have DeJounte Murray and CJ McCollum back. Trae Young's listed as probable, so obviously keep an eye on this, but I do hate to chalk it up to another favorite here, especially Atlanta. I don't think Atlanta really deserves to be 10-point favorites over many teams in this league, but this is a Pelicans Pelicans team that is in such disarray. And this Atlanta team's kind of, I don't want to say on fire, but they've won 3 straight games. And why I would slightly say maybe playing some good basketball is 2 of those games were against Cleveland, you know? They beat them by double digits in both of those, one of them being a 16-point win. They were dogs in both. So, like, Atlanta is showing some life. They didn't cover against Charlotte, so, okay, you can kind of roll it right back and say, well, yeah, maybe they just have a good matchup against Cleveland, sure. But Atlanta is at home here. I do think that this is a decent spot. At home this year, they're a lot better than they are on the road. Not a lot better, but at least the big true here is that New Orleans is 1-10 on the road. So fading New Orleans on the road is okay. I mean, fading them overall, they have 4 wins, right? But overall 1-10 on the road. It's a huge number, but I think the shoe fits here. Atlanta -10. It's a big number. I think that this could be a nice same game parlay situation with one of the player props I like, taking Atlanta money line with the player prop. We'll talk about that in a second, but let's go to a total here. I think this one could get, fast pace. Atlanta, the number 1 pace team in the league over the last 10 games. New Orleans, not exactly that fast, right? They're kind of middle of the pack. I won't say that they're going to be, I wouldn't rely on them to score. Like, they've scored under 100 points in 2 of the last 3 games, and the one that they didn't, it was just 109. But their defense really isn't there. 118, 120, 119, 114, 112, 128, 132, 104, 94, 106 are their last 10 games in terms of points allowed. And this season, they have one of the worst defensive efficiency ratings overall as well. So if Atlanta gets this game running, I could see CJ McCollum and DeJounte Murray running as well. DeJounte Murray revenge spot, if you want to say it like that. So yeah, give me the over 228.5, but I would definitely prioritize Atlanta over the total. And then this player prop that I like is going to be, well, I have 2 in essence. I really do like Clint Capella here. This is a New Orleans team that just cannot stop anything. 2nd most points allowed in the paint so far this season. Atlanta in the paint and in the restricted area, the 4th most field goal attempts per game over the last 10. So they're trying to get down low as well. So Clint Capella over in points. I also don't mind Jalen Johnson here. His line, so Clint Capella is 9.5 right now. For him to get double digits, I really do like. I've played around with the idea of a double-double from him as well. So make sure to keep an eye on the final plays there. But Jalen Johnson, his points is at 19.5. Yeah, he's hit that in 2 straight games against the Pelicans. He's hit it in 6 of his last 7 games. That could definitely be a look as well. And remember, guys, Trae Young is questionable. If we get these lines early, I mean, he's probable, so he's probably playing. But if we, and I like this with Trae Young being said, so if we get these early and then for whatever reason they say, well, we don't really need Trae Young against this Pelicans team, these guys should get a few more attempts and whatnot, right? So it could be a decent look there to kind of jump on earlier, sooner rather than later, I should say. But overall, it's not going to hurt either way. Trae Young's going to add to these guys' points total as well with his assists and whatnot, but I do think that they have a few more field goal attempts coming. So give me Atlanta on the spread, as well as a slight lean towards the over. Maybe we consider an Atlanta team total over. I just fear it's going to be super high because they're 10-point favorites, but I'm really liking Clint and Jalen Johnson. So there's some same game parlay potential there where maybe we can take those 2 guys for their points and maybe bring their points down a little bit, and then Atlanta money line, something like that. Keep an eye on the final plays. Definitely some massaging of the numbers that we could potentially do in this one. All right, guys, I know this is an NBA video, but we do have Monday Night Football on tonight, and Underdog is hooking you up with a Jameis Winston 0.5 total yard square. Broncos defense is tough, but I do think he can get at least 1 yard for us. If you guys don't know what Underdog is, it is a DFS app. It's available in most states. You just pick higher or lower on player set projections. Obviously higher over here. Why are you taking lower on that? Higher on player set projections or lower on player set projections. You just put them into an entry. The more you get correct, the more you do get paid out. And today you can get this 0.5 square with the link in the pinned comment and the description. Also put it on the Guy Boston Sports site, so it's easy for you guys. But go take advantage of that. You're also going to get an amazing deposit bonus when signing up. So go check out Underdog, guys. That link is going to be down below. Go ahead and check it out. Do not miss this free square. All right, moving on here, we have Minnesota taking on the Lakers. This Minnesota team, I'm not exactly sure where they stand right now. They did, a few nights back, get a decent win over the Clippers. Clippers are a good team, but they were 6.5-point favorites. They win that game by 1. So it's like they didn't even cover based on what they, quote-unquote, should have done, right? Lakers over here winning 2 of their last 3, only losing to OKC in the mix there. They've won 6 of their last 10, so we can give them a little bit of credit there, but they've been a lot better at home this year, 7-3, than they are on the road at 5-5. This Minnesota team, kind of the flip side, right? They've been, actually the same thing, but they are home here. They've been better at home, worse on the road. So where they're playing doesn't exactly work out all that well for the Lakers, but I'm talking straight up numbers, right? In terms of win-loss. Minnesota at home this season has only covered in 20% of their games. Lakers, though, also have only covered in 30%. So both teams kind of, in a spot here, home and away, that doesn't exactly relate in the biggest of historical covers so far this year. 7.5 points is a lot, right? 7.5 points is definitely a lot of points. This is a Minnesota team that has definitely struggled at preventing points in the paint so far this season. And the Lakers have been scoring in the paint this season, 8th highest points per point per game in the paint. So I think 7.5 points is too much. Give me the underdog, the Lakers, plus the 7.5 here. I will say, the Lakers also don't cover the paint all that well. They're kind of middle of the pack in terms of covering the perimeter, which is where Minnesota likes to shoot the ball, so maybe that helps out the Lakers a little bit. But if Minnesota decides to take it into the paint, Minnesota could also have some success. But I do think that this is a spot for the Lakers to keep it close. I've bounced back and forth between the under or the over. I think I'm going to set here on the under just because these two teams I think will be scoring by twos a lot more than threes tonight, but I'm not really sold on that. So if you're thinking, you like the over, it's too low, you could see these two teams kind of running and getting some easy buckets, I'm not here to talk you off of that. What I will say is that information about points in the paint and scoring by twos, I do think could result in a decent spot for Julius Randle to kind of get into the paint and score, 20, 22 points, which his line right now is at 20.5. Last time they played, he only did, I think it was 16 points, opening night. So yeah, that's tough. He didn't hit it opening night, but that was opening night, right? Now in his last 10 games here, he's averaging 20.8, which is right on that line. He's hitting 6 of his last 10, but those 6 have come within his last 7, and he just didn't hit it. He only had 9 field goal attempts and 4 makes against the Clippers. So I think he's due for a little bit of a bounce back spot here. The Lakers on the defensive end against power forwards, allowing the 5th most points in the last seven games and the 3rd most threes. So Julius Randle seems like he could have a decent spot here tonight in terms of getting his. And I think that he's also a guy that will score a decent amount in like an under type of a game where it's kind of brutes going back and forth down low. So Julius Randle and the Lakers, and then a slight lean towards the under. The under's probably my least favorite out of all 3 of those spots. All right, Chicago taking on Brooklyn. We're going to want to wait for some injuries here, I think, before really feeling confident about this. We have a ton on the Brooklyn side of things. Only one to really monitor on Chicago is going to be Kobe White. Then we have, in terms of starters, Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, game time decisions there for Brooklyn. In terms of guys that we want to wait out, you have Zaire Williams, now game time decision, Sharp game time decision, Ben Simmons game time decision, Bogdanovich, Clowney, Martin, Cam Thomas, all listed as out. So we want to keep an eye. Like if Finney-Smith, Cam Johnson, and Simmons are playing, I do think that we could be looking at a plus 7.5 spot here for Brooklyn. Have they been great on the road this year? No, but they've been a very good cover team. So they've only won. Let's see what the record is at home. On the road. 5-7 on the road, right? But in terms of against the spread, they've covered in 81.8% of their road games so far this season. Chicago's sitting there at just 44.4%. So this is a Brooklyn team that likes to cover. On the year, they're 13-7 ATS. You know what I mean? So obviously a decent team at least covering these numbers. And this is a large number, I would say. This is not the best Chicago team. I'm not sitting here being like, wow, they're amazing, right? In their last 4 games here, if this were to be the line at 7.5, they would only have covered it in 1 game. Now, that being said, they played Boston in one of those games, Orlando, Memphis, that was healthy. So, yeah, I do understand that. But overall, yeah, this is the spot for Brooklyn, I believe. Just keeping it close. Is Chicago going to win the game? I would not be surprised, especially if Kobe White plays. Sure, I would not be surprised. This is a Brooklyn team that has been up and down this year, but it seems like they've been hanging, like they've been beating some good teams even recently. Phoenix, Golden State, they lose to Orlando. Actually, they get they narrowly lose against the spread the last game, but they played right before and they got punked, right? So this is a team that's been up and down. I'm not saying that they're world beaters or anything like that, but Chicago has also been up and down, and 7.5 points seems like it's a little bit too much. Very similar to what I said about Minnesota, right? Like, I think that there could be some spots for easy buckets on the other end, like the fact that Chicago is the worst team in the league at preventing points in the paint, 30th in terms of points in the paint allowed so far this year. Brooklyn, not exactly all that tremendous at getting to the hoop, but they should have an easier time today, right? And then where Brooklyn likes to score from the perimeter, Chicago's also pretty dang bad there as well. In terms of numbers, Brooklyn so far this year, 5th most points from 3, 4th most on the road. Chicago, 9th most given up, and then 5th most given up at home. And then on the flip side, Chicago loves to shoot the 3 as well. 2nd most points allowed from points per game for them from 3, but Brooklyn actually a top 10 team so far this season at preventing threes, and then a top 3 team when playing on the road. So there are a lot of little nuggets there that kind of scream Brooklyn to me, but they are very injured. So we talk about season-long stats and whatnot. They had Cam Thomas. Ben Simmons had played a little bit. Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, a couple starters. You know what I mean? Like, there are some injuries to monitor. So, yeah, give me Brooklyn, but I really do want a healthy Brooklyn team overall, but that's going to be a spot. In terms of player props here, nothing major that I'm liking. I guess due to the fact that, Chicago's so bad down low, I would potentially consider something like a Dennis Schroeder over in points plus assists, because he'll be able to get into the point. He actually leads in the last 10 games here, leads the team in field goal attempts per game from the restricted area. So I think that could be a decent spot for him to kind of get in there and either dish it to someone else or score himself. So maybe a Dennis Schroeder over points plus assists, but a lot of those injuries are going to be factored into player props today. So we'll probably update you guys with the final plays, just because I don't want to jump on something that's an inflated line. Like, I think his line is like 30.5, something kind of crazy, right? And then all of a sudden those guys play, and it's like, well, that's less field goal attempts for him. Maybe more assists, but still makes it tough to get to that line, right? So definitely something worth considering, but just keep an eye on the final plays to see if it is something that we ultimately end up rolling with. Now, we haven't talked about the total yet. Neither one of these teams is all that efficient when it comes to the offensive end. Neither one of them is all that great when it comes to the defensive end. I will say, like I mentioned, Brooklyn does stop the way that the Bulls score, which is the perimeter, and the Bulls play very, very fast. Brooklyn plays very, very slow. I think if Brooklyn can kind of throw a wrench into the offensive game plan of Chicago, we could be looking at an under 234, and that's got a chance of being a final play regardless of injuries. But I could also see this game, I do like the under, but I could see this game being like, oh my God, these two teams are so bad defensively. It's just a high scoring game because of that, right? Like, we've gotten burned by Chicago a couple times just because we know they're not all that great offensively, but it's like they're so bad defensively that they just allow these easy points and teams build some points scored on them. But we'll see, guys. Keep an eye on the final plays. It's going to wrap it up for today's show. Again, glad to be back. Again, took a day off, which we rarely do. Hopefully you guys do understand. And comment 17 if you made it this far in the video, so you hear this little brief rant. But we took a day off. One day we were traveling, and I feel so recharged. We've been going 24/7 for who knows how long, right? So the fact that we were able to just relax for a day and not think about it and that type of thing. We still did NFL work, but the daily NBA feels really good. So hopefully you guys do appreciate that. And anytime you're like, where's the video or whatnot, check the post section of the channel or the Discord or Twitter. Like, I will let you guys know when there's not going to be a video up, but mostly on the YouTube post section. I'll say, hey, like what I said this time was next 2 days, no NBA videos. NFL will still come out, but I'll see you guys Monday. And we got a lot of comments being like, where are you at? Where are you at? Check that, guys, if you are, looking for that, or you don't see me on a video on a day or something like that. There's going to be information there. But anyways, enough of that. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. Hope you guys did enjoy. Catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.